What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Tesla stock, ticker symbol TSLA, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Friday, April 5th. All right, guys, Tesla stock here today, actually, given the circumstances, an impressive move here today, an impressive hold, up $2.73 a share, plus 1.62%. Making a really hard upside move kind of late morning into lunch hour. And then late in the day, of course, Tesla being a big mega chip, big blue chip company, it's going to fall victim to some macro volatility. Couple of things. Tomorrow, 1 hour before the opening bell, we get the jobs report. It's worth mentioning since it's likely to affect Tesla because it's a market stock. Not only that, but in addition to that, late in the day today, we did have quite a few Fed speakers today. And it's nothing we had never heard before, but we're getting comments like, quote, it'd be smart for the Fed to take our time. No one wants inflation to reemerge. Kashkari, he went as far as saying that if inflation, remains sideways, he's going to start questioning whether we need to cut at all this year. We've heard it all at this point, but that doesn't change the fact that it's going to, impact or more so trigger some volatility in the broader market, especially the blue chips and the indices. But listen, let's take a look at Tesla here and see what kind of bias we can pull everything that the market gave us here today using the volume profile, the options directional bias, the psychological levels, the trading levels, and finally, the expected move. So let's start by analyzing the volume profile here on the 5-minute chart and see what kind of bias, if any, we can pull out. Listen, by the way, guys, today is the first day of my newly implemented upload schedule. Tesla will be uploaded every single day that the market is open at 5 p.m. Eastern time sharp. Every day, Tesla at 5 p.m. sharp. So, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps out tremendously. My goal here is to hit 6,000 in the next couple of days. So let's take a look here. A lot of movement today I'm interested in taking a look at. Honestly, guys, I'm not even going to circle because I want to look at this entirety of this upside move or this frontside move and really most of the backside move, especially this little period here heading into the close. So let's take a look at this volume profile and see what we can pull out. The open is very contextual. We got that fade, a little bit of pops here and there, but not enough for me to assign any bias there. This move here, guys, sure, it's broken up by a single red candle, but we had, what is that? Is that 9 consecutive green bars? And at least 4 out of the 9, if you include this one, we're talking 5, were out of context, meaning higher volume than what would be expected during that time of day. And, these candles at the higher volume, they're not incredibly wicky, meaning they're not battle bars necessarily, meaning a lot of that volume was likely just buying volume, contributing to that upside move, and that holds up when we peel back a layer of the onion and look at the volume profile. There's definitely some bullish bias there in the profile. And that certainly supports that move there. Now, if we go to this back half, the back side of this move where we saw kind of that big fade, Tesla falling victim to the macro volatility today. What I noticed here first is that this close is very contextual because, listen, this is the first bar after the close. You can notice that it's a little wicky and it didn't contribute to a lot of movement. And those bars have been very common lately. We've been seeing that happen a lot. And what that is I think it's funds and institutions triggering after the bell to rebalance. Okay. But if we look here, we got, 8 consecutive red bars, but only a couple of them were out of context. And you also had this green bar that was additional or kind of added on to the end there. And it was also out of context. I'm not comfortable, I don't think, assigning any bias there, because if we also look at the candles themselves, they were very small and much more wicky than the higher volume bars on the green side. They were less aggressive, smaller, and had larger wicks in comparison to the overall size of the candle. I'm not comfortable assigning too much bearish bias to that little red streak that we did see. Which leaves us in an interesting spot. It's not incredibly unexpected given the back half of this move was a lot of macro and the front half was kind of a lot of Tesla today. But we're certainly seeing more bullish bias on the front side of the move than we are bearish bias on the back half. So let's move on now to the self-fulfilling prophecy levels that I'm paying attention to that traders are going to be watching on a variety of charts starting with the 30-minute. Now, first thing you'll notice here, We talked about Tesla yesterday, that we reclaimed the 50 period here on the 30-minute chart. It was still in a downtrend. What did we talk about yesterday? If you caught yesterday's video, I wanted to see the 50 period hold. Not only that, I wanted to see it start to curl and return to an ascending position. We did that. We didn't get a super clean test, but it did hold throughout the entirety of the day. You know, Tesla actually made an honest run at the 200 period here on the 30-minute, but this macro, well, first of all, we rejected off that 177.40, 177.50 level. We will talk about that here in a split second. But we rejected and then faded through the 200 period because that macro volatility took precedence over the psychology of these very, very basic and very common indicators like the 50 period and the 200 period on the heavily watched 30-minute chart. It's all self-fulfilling prophecy, but sometimes outside factors take precedence. Like today, we saw that macro volatility, so we broke back down beneath the 200 period without much of a chance. But we did hold that 50 period. So listen, bulls, tomorrow, two things. Any retest, a hard retest, which we have not really gotten yet, of the 50 period, that's now in that nice ascending uptrend position. I just want to see it hold and bounce away on high volume. To the upside, right? The ideal scenario on the 30-minute would be a reclaim of the 200 period like we saw today, though on the retest, I would like to see a little bit lower volume and then boom, a high volume hold. Bears, it's the opposite. Any upside test of the 200 period, hard high volume rejection, but bears, your ideal scenario is two things. Break downside beneath the 50 on big volume, low volume retest, high volume rejection to confirm, right? Big sample size coming in and confirming that this 50 period is now going to act as a short-term resistance. And on top of that, ideally getting this 50 period also to flatten out and then curl over back into this descending position that we saw the last few days. Now, let's move on here to the 4-hour and take a look. You can see that Tesla made a big test of that 50 period here today, and we actually broke it before that macro dragged us back down. So as of now, we find ourselves about 1.7% away from a retest of that, which, given today's intraday volatility, that 1.6% finish doesn't do the volatility justice. That's well within a single day's potential for Tesla. So we do have to talk about that. Listen, if you're a bear here, that 50 period on the 4-hour, that's your 4-hour enemy. Any test of it, you just want to see a hard rejection. Even today was a little too close for comfort. You guys kind of got bailed out by that macro scenario heading into tomorrow and the Fed comments, right? But bulls, a reclaim is ideal. And not just a reclaim. I prefer a reclaim test and confirmation, right? The volume is an important factor because when you get a high volume break and then a low volume test, what that's telling us is that a lower amount or a lower sample size, I should say, of market participants is betting on the retest breaking. So you get a high volume test or break upside, a low volume retest of the level, and then a high volume bounce confirmation as people come back in and say, yeah, that's what I thought. We're going to hold this level. Now that's the 4-hour chart. The daily is where we start getting the real story that has the most eyeballs. Guys, today was a really interesting day. If we take a look here, I'll actually zoom in a little bit more. We made a test. A couple of things happened today. Not only did we kind of confirm the break and hold of 166.50 to 167, you guys remember that's like a 50-cent wide channel. And, bulls, I wanted to hold above 167 today, the top end of that channel. We certainly did that. That was a beautiful thing to see. We tested that 177.50 region, which is actually 177.50 to 180. That's kind of like the width of that particular level is that $2.50 wide channel that we've seen, tested and respected over and over again here on the stock. But tomorrow's really simple. Okay, bulls, two things. I want to hold above 167. Okay, even if tomorrow's a red day, a hold above 167 in my book is somewhat of a win. The more ideal hold is 170 because it's a round number. All right. But the most ideal scenario, and granted, we are a little bit of a move away here now after the late day fade, about 3.6% away. But a break into that 177.50 to 180 level, listen, a hold of 180 would be tremendous, and we have to talk about it given today's volatility. But the expectation of that is a little outside of Tesla's ATR, average true range. So while a break and hold of 180 would be beautiful, and that puts the bulls kind of up and out of that area of resistance, at least for a single day move, really, listen, a hold of 170, if not just 167, I'm relatively happy with as a bull on Tesla tomorrow. Bears. A break and hold of 177.50, especially 180, is that's kind of a short-term disaster if you're a bear, because that puts the bulls in a position of power. But how do you get yourself into a position of power if you're a bear? Well, if Tesla were able to close beneath 166.50, because again, that channel 166.50 to 170, on the bottom end of that channel, out of like the channel entirely to the bottom, to the downside, a close beneath 166.50 would be a beautiful thing if you're a bear here tomorrow heading into the weekend. Now, two more things here. We have an expiration tomorrow on Tesla. The market's volatility expectation by close tomorrow is plus or minus $4.18 a share. Listen, that expected move by design does not have a directional bias. Okay, so it's $4.18 per share. That puts the stock approximately, the market's expectation is that it ends up as high as 175.30 approximately, or as low as approximately just a tad below 167, which kind of puts it right in that channel. Okay, so it would take a little bit more volatility than is expected to break downside beneath 166.50. And, you know, bulls, the market doesn't expect to see a break upside of 177.50, let alone 180. But that's where your disagreement comes in. We get the directional bias by doing the analysis, looking at the volume profile, you know, all the psychological levels, all the trading levels, you know, and the technical levels, of course, and then also the options bias. But when you couple all of that with the volatility expectation, you can much more effectively position yourself, especially as an options trader. So last thing here, let's take a peek at the options bias. We had a lot of contracts traded, 2.95 million total traded today, 1.45 million calls, and about 1.5 million puts. So it's actually very slight put side bias, but it's essentially even here today. But if we break this down by time frame, the short-term speculators, the 0 to 20 delta range, within that range, we're seeing 478,000 calls and about 549,000 puts. So listen, it's not overwhelming at all, but we're seeing a slight short-term bets put side bias. But this is very closer today, especially on the overall. The market is, with a big sample size of nearly 3 million contracts, is relatively undecided here on Tesla, at least in the chain. In the very short term, there's a very slight put side bias. Listen, if you got value out of that video, again, please subscribe to the channel. Tesla hits every single day at 5 p.m. Eastern time sharp, at least every day that the market is open. I appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.